So welcome, Alex. Do you want to just introduce yourself about who you are, how you're involved in property?
Yeah, so my name's Alex. I'm a property investor now. I got made redundant really recently, so it sort of fired me into to doing this full time. So that's how I got into it. I started as everybody does, really thinking about the future a bit, about retirement and trying to retire early and bring that forward. I bought my first house to renovate just so that I could, add some value and catch up on the mortgage in terms of equity. And then I started learning so much more, and that just rapidly accelerated into becoming a property investor and deciding that actually, a career change is something that I'd definitely look to do in the future. And then bang, got made redundant, and here we are. So deep end.
That must be a really scary place to be in, that you didn't have a choice now. You've got to make a change. Do you feel like you almost needed that boom so that now you got really focused?
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. I wish I didn't have to admit that that is the truth, but it is. Ultimately, you know, I didn't grow up comfortably, but I think because of that, I had a higher priority on being a career man, getting a good job, you know, putting away in a pension, and creating a security for myself, and that ultimately, um, led me to here really. But because I did quite well there, I became a little bit too comfortable. Um, so I guess it's harder to leave leave a good thing for something great than it is to, when perhaps you've got nothing to lose. And getting the career, I felt I had nothing to lose then, and that's why I think, that's why I got into that quite well. But yeah, having a kick um, has helped, to be honest with you. Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. You said that you bought your first property and then you like did it up a little bit. Is that the property that you live in, or is that an investment property?
Yeah, so that's the property that I live in. It's my first house. Um, I bought it while I was still on my apprenticeship. Um, I I was that slightly sub-social guy that was being really tight, not coming out on parties, not drinking, not getting involved in, holidays and little excursions and stuff like that, and just squirreling away absolutely everything I possibly could, to sort of start this, because I felt that it was really, really important, life changing to get onto the property ladder early. Because once you're renting for yourself, it's hard to put money away, isn't it? Because ultimately, the mortgage is cheaper once you've managed to put your deposit down
Mm.
than it is to rent. So yeah, I bought, and also I was on my own. I didn't have a partner at that time, so that sort of that risk and putting myself in a position where the property that I lived in wasn't in good condition was a decision that only I had to deal with. I don't have to, put my children through that because I don't have any. I don't have to put my partner through that because I didn't have any at the time. Um, things are different now, but that's the sort of the position that I was in. I wanted to create a stable base as quickly as possible. Um, so that's what I did, yeah. But it's because of the income at the time. I didn't really have a lot of choice other than to do it myself, and I always figured that I could do it myself anyway. So all of the work, apart from things like the boiler, which you need to be gas registered for, etc., are things that I've done myself. And as I learn about speed and leverage and all those sorts of things, I learned that actually that's really silly. And if I did have more money, even if I got a loan, ultimately I'd be able to pull out capital sooner and use that to invest. But then it kind of became a bit of I felt like I couldn't mentally do it to myself to not finish the challenge, to pay somebody else to finish what I started. I wanted to complete it and I wanted it to be mine. Um, and so when I got made redundant, um, I realized that actually I'd just spent the last couple of years making myself more vulnerable than I needed to be, because I can't remortgage now. I can't take that equity out. All that capital is stuck because I'm not lendable. I can't be lent to, and unless I get a proper job, as it were. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot to be said for getting the right people in to do the job correctly at the right time, and really specializing in managing those people correctly so that you're minimizing a risk. Definitely, which is what I'm working on now. So I'm writing a spec and looking at CDM regulations, and I'm going to look at JCT contracts and stuff like that, because ultimately when my redundancy pay comes in soon, I've only got one shot at finishing this property off. If somebody comes in, pay peanuts, get monkeys, buy cheap, buy twice. If it goes wrong, that's it. I really am in a pickle. So I've got to get it right, and I've got to get it right fast. So doing it myself is no longer an option. It's a bit of a tight spot to be in, but yeah.
It must be really, I don't know, it's scary because, like you said, you can't, even if you put up your property and you try to remortgage it, are you going to pay?
Yeah, I can't.
You can't, because you haven't got any money coming in. So
Yeah.
that makes you stuck. So you'll just have to continue on the mortgage you're already on. Is that right? Is it still
So
fixed, or is it now gone to a tracker?
it's a fix, but what I did when I learned, so I took a little bit of a gamble right at the beginning, because obviously the interest rates were low. But I did a load of research, and I figured interest rates are going to continue to be low for around about 2 years, and then they will probably go up over the next 5-year period at some point. Things are obviously different now, as is as our markets. But I didn't want to end up doing a 5-year fix and then my next 5-year fix being quite high. So I thought if I did a little 2-year fix really low, then I'd probably lock in a slightly higher fix, but still low because the rate would still be low. But when I got to the end of that 2-year fix, I'd learned enough that I realised I'd need to not be exposing myself to early repayment charges and things like that. So I paid around about £15 a month extra for no early repayment charges. And again, it comes down to it's that thing about going to the right mortgage broker and telling them what you want as an outcome, because there's 8,000 mortgage providers out there and only 3 were offering a 5-year fix at a 5-year fix with no early repayment charges. One had almost prohibitive fee for entry, which would mean that you basically are paying your early repayment charge up front, and the other had a ridiculous interest rate, something like 7.5%, which again was fairly prohibitive. So yeah, I think that again, that sort of thing taught me that people will say you can't get a mortgage for that, you can't get a mortgage in your position, you can't get so you can't get, people say you can't be a first-time landlord and a HMO landlord in a one-up, but you really can. I haven't tried to get a mortgage in principle for that recently. No doubt that's far more difficult right now. But yeah, I think you've just got to remember there's 8,000 providers out there, and never say never and don't quit.
I think what you said about the fix is really interesting. So when I bought this house that I live in,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, you always have to decide how long to fix for? And you're like, oh, I want to
Mhm.
fix for a long time because I want to know I can afford it. There is
Mhm.
so obviously the risk that might go down and you might be overpaying, but I'm always like, as long as I can afford it now, I assume I can afford it then, which may not always be the case in your situation, for example. But,
Yeah.
so I did a 2-year fix, came out, and then I had a much better loan to value because my property had gone up in value in those 2 years. It went up
Mm.
40 grand, so I was really lucky.
Mm.
And then I fixed the 5, but now I'm at the 4-year point, and I'm like, no, I want to move, and I want to use all that equity I've got to get a much nicer house. So I will have to pay the early repayment fee. But I guess it doesn't really
Mm.
matter when it's your own home as much because you're doing it because you want to move as well. But it is always hard to decide how long should you fix for.
Yeah, I mean, the rates are so low, and there are providers that will give you a 10-year fix, but your ability to port, I think they call it portal
Yeah,
your mortgage to your next house if you choose to move, is discretionary, and it's completely the lender's decision. So yeah, that is a big decision to make, but ultimately, depending on the outstanding amount and the interest rate, you might save yourself some money by taking that risk. So,
what I learned, by the way, because I was going to port my mortgage, is if you
mm,
then I would be getting a more expensive house. Then it's almost like you get a second mortgage on the house. You've got 2 mortgages for the 2 different amounts. Um,
yeah,
and
yeah,
I asked, like, well, can they be in sync so they renew at the same time? And they're like, no, you can't do that. And I'm
yeah.
like, oh, that doesn't sound as nice as it sounded before.
Yeah. Is it called additional borrowing or additional lending? I think
Something
they call that.
like
Yeah.
that. And I think it's also important what you said about talking to the right people, because there are so many different lenders and there are lots of brokers. But my advice to people would be, don't just pick the first broker you speak to a few first. See who
Yeah.
you get on with. Some of them charge, some of them don't charge. Some people would argue, well, if they don't charge, they might not be as good because the good people will charge. But
Yeah.
that's not necessarily true either. But I would say go on recommendation.
Mm. I wish it was true that it's as simple as the more you pay, the more you get. Uh, um, you know, but I personally, for this house, I had a free mortgage broker, London and Country, and it's also online only. There's no face-to-face appointments, and they were phenomenal. They really were. One of the reasons that was important to me to go with London and Country is, um, as a shift worker, uh, it's quite handy to be able to come home. Having left the house at 6 o'clock, you get home at 7 p.m. and you make your call, and they're still about,
Mm.
up until sort of 8 o'clock, because they do like a morning and an evening shift. So just the availability in terms of hours per day and the size of the company, you could always talk to somebody. So if you had something burning that needed done really soon, then they could just open up your file and add to it, or you could book an appointment with your particular person that you usually speak to every time.
Yeah.
But they were really good.
So what are your plans moving forward? Obviously, you're waiting for redundancy money to come in. You're going to be touching up your house, making it look spick and span, and then
Yeah,
obviously you want to get on into property more. So what's your next steps? What are your goals?
yeah, great. So things sort of shifted when I got made redundant. Obviously, uh, I've realised really recently, because I thought, oh well, if I can't remortgage, then I'll have to sell, and I'll sell it, release all the capital, and then I'll rent. And what I wanted to do, because obviously at the moment I need cash flow fairly soon, And also because I've got a partner and she works, but we calculated the bills, and ultimately what she earns is a little bit less than the bills. So we need some cash flow fairly fast. So I thought, right, well, let's get a HMO. And one of the other reasons that I decided getting a HMO would be smart is because you're balancing you're spreading your risk between more tenants early in the stages of your portfolio. So, you know, if you get a multi-let, you've got 4 tenants. You know, a single let, you've got one family in there. Ultimately, one person is paying for that. So, or a couple are paying for that. So that seemed like a plan. But I won't have quite enough cash when I sell this place to buy a HMO, so I will still need some kind of mortgage. So now I'm thinking, right, well, I might have to source. I might be forced into doing rent to rent. You know, which I've got to be honest with you is not my favorite. It's not my favorite strategy. It's the one that I'm least comfortable with. I could do buy, refurb, refinance, but I'd have to. I don't. I don't know. I'd have to joint venture somehow, so that a partner did the mortgage side of it, and I could put capital in. You know, find the project, manage the project. You know, get all the money back out, but using them as a mortgage. So yeah, there's a lot to think about.
Would you consider,
But ultimately,
you
go
said
on.
you're thinking of selling to then rent and then have some capital, which is fine. You can do that. It's your choice. I would be really scared to do something like that.
Yeah,
Consider maybe buying a place big enough that you could be a live-in landlord so that you only had to purchase one house.
that's a really cool idea. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I suppose if the lender had let me port the mortgage, then I'd be more able to do that. I don't know if they'd do that.
I don't know. It
But
might
again,
be,
it's about speaking
yeah, speak to the broker.
to a broker and saying, you know, this is my situation. What can you get me a mortgage in principle for?
Yeah.
These are the outcomes that I'm looking towards, and just having a big discussion, to be honest with you, because they're the experts at the end of the day. So yeah, but I mean, what I really invite and what this is about, you know, is about speaking to other creative people who, you know, who have these ideas, who are, you know, who are just creative, think about things outside of the box. What could you do? Not, you're gonna have to get a job, you know. I've got no problem with that, you know. I'm not burning my bridges, and I need something to fall back on. So I do have an interview tomorrow. I'm not going to lie, I don't want the job, you know, because
I won't post this until after.
yeah, well, it's in the morning tomorrow, so yeah, you could post it in the afternoon if you wanted. But yeah, that would be a bit of self-sabotage, wouldn't it? Yeah. But honestly, you know, I mean what I say. You know, I put my money where my mouth is, as it were. I really want to do this, and I want it to work. So I've got a bit of a scattergun approach. That's why I started this social media thing as well, because I thought I've got some value that I can add. I can monetize social media, you know, somehow. But it's one of the things that I've learned is um, don't worry about the XYZ, do the ABC, and then figure out as you go, you know, jump off the cliff and learn to fly on the way down. So do I honestly know how I'm going to monetize social media? No, I don't. I wouldn't say I haven't got a clue, but I'm a long way off of feeling like, yeah, that's fine. I'll be able to do that. but I do know that I've got massive value, massive knowledge. So I'm just starting getting my face out there, and that's what this is about. So Traffic Secrets says that traffic, as in, the footfall, if you like, in social media, is not created. It just always flows. So, for example, let's say Tony Robbins, right, famous life coach. Um, there are thousands and thousands of followers that already follow him. So if you start posting, in his groups, then and you connect with people in his groups, then they will they will come to visit your profile. So you can share that, you can leverage that. So for example, as my social media grows, and people look at this, which I will post on my social media, they'll go, oh, who's that Shona that interviewed Alex? And vice versa. So you just got to get involved with people, cross the boundaries. Don't see it as your garden with your fence going down in a terrace. Knock the fences down, speak to everyone. Network is net worth.
So I'm just thinking again about your situation. How many bedrooms have you got in your house right now?
I have got three bedrooms. I had to think about that. I've got 3 bedrooms.
And you're only using one, right?
Yeah, so a mate of mine is coming to stay with us in January because he's working at Sizewell.
Okay.
When the property is finished, it'll be in a state to potentially rent a couple of rooms out, I suppose. So I took a bit of a risk. The last mortgage I was on, you could pay an extra 1% and let it.
Yeah.
Whereas this mortgage doesn't have that capability because I was looking at the refinance.
Yeah. So you can't let out rooms. You can't do that.
Well, not legally.
You can't.
I mean, you do get yeah, no, absolutely. You get a £7,000 lodging allowance, don't you? But I think tax-free lodging allowance. But you still have to ring up your mortgage provider and
you have to get permission for that.
and make them aware. So yeah. But that's something that I could do. Once it's
also
finished.
2 reception rooms, or have you only got 1 reception room?
I do. You're right. Why?
So why are you
why
thinking
have I not thought of these things?
Because to buy something else, I'm not saying you shouldn't do that long term, but those are big moves. If you could get the bank to give you permission to let, and you could let out your 2 spare rooms and 1 of your reception rooms, that's 3 rooms you could be renting out. You'd be in property, making money and covering your mortgage.
This has been helpful, hasn't it?
But only if you can get your mortgage company to give you permission to let. And if you have to come out of that mortgage to get another one, obviously you're going to struggle. So I don't know. I would talk to a broker about it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I will do that. Yeah, I mean, what have I got now? I've got 25% equity, so in theory, I could rent. No, because you need a minimum income. You need to meet minimum income requirements, which are usually about 20 grand, aren't they? But again, it's a conversation with a mortgage broker.
Yeah, talk to the person that knows. I don't know. I'm just coming up with ideas.
Yeah, but I like this. I like this winging it, genuinely creative, on the fly sort of approach. It's good. It's just like a friendly phone conversation.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do with obviously you've probably seen that this is my 4th one, I think. In 1 week I've done this, and I was really nervous to do them, but yeah, literally now I'm just like, no, we'll just jump on a call, we'll just have a chat, that's it, because it's real. I feel like a lot of property people, they're very salesy. Where I'm just real.
Mm.
Let's just chat. Let's learn from each other. That's it.
Yeah, yeah. I was at a conference, and there was a guy there squirreling away, writing some things, and I I sort of looked over and I thought, oh, that he had like a heat map on his page, and I thought that looks interesting. What's that heat map showing? And I just casually looked over, and he turned his laptop screen away because he was so secretive. And later on, uh, I'd learned really recently at that point to basically just give your secrets away, because you get so much more value than you give, and ultimately the more value you can give, the more value you get, because there's only one of you. So if you gave all your secrets away and everybody else gave all their secrets to you, you're wiser at the end of the day. If even only a quarter of those people give their secrets to you, you are wiser, and you can use that for yourself. It's not, there's plenty of stock for property. It's not um you know a, it's not a limited supply. So yeah, I later on I just found an absolute gem. It was a website that had a list of negative equity places by by average value in 2008, and average value now, Sunderland being by far the worst in terms of negative equity. And we were learning about lease option agreements at that point. And I just said to him, I said, hey mate, look at this. This is pucker. I found this resource. Don't worry about that these are the areas to target, and in what order to prioritize doing them, because these are the people in the worst situation, and ultimately the people in the worst situation are the people that you can help the most, and the people that you can help the most are the people you can add the most value to, and that's where you can make the most money, because ultimately money comes from helping people in some way or another. So and he was like, wow, that's amazing, thanks so much. And he showed me his laptop screen. He said, don't tell anyone else about this. And he just started sharing everything he had with me. And I thought, if you applied that, you'd be, you do better. So, and that was like a boom moment for me. So now, that property within reach Instagram account that I run, it's about, as soon as I get a sweet piece of information that really is going to make a difference, that's where I think people are struggling, I just put it out there straight away, because people are going to see that and they're going to go, wow, I want to work with Alex, right? Because that's how it works. You give value, and and people become interested. So yeah, that's where that is.
Cool. Excellent. All right.
I feel like we've tangented. What was the original question?
This is what I do. I just start talking to people, and then just wherever the conversation takes us is fine. I don't remember what I asked you. Don't worry about it.
You you do that silence thing, and I feel like I need to keep going.
Yeah, that's what you're supposed to
It's
do.
a brilliant negotiation.
Yeah, I know. All these negotiating things. When I was reading all the books about negotiating, I hate it, because I hate conflict. I hate salesiness. I hate trying to convince somebody to do something they don't want to do. So
Yeah.
I don't try and do that. I'll just ask people, do you want to? If they say no, I'm like, okay, cool, no problem. But yes, I didn't realize I did the feel the silence thing.
Yeah. Have you? So what negotiation books have you read?
Oh, now I don't even remember. Hang on, let me have a look on my audio.
Sure.
I don't read. I'm dyslexic, and I find it really hard. And I've got ADHD, so whenever I read a page,
Yeah.
I start daydreaming and I forget everything that I've read.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's
never
familiar.
never split the difference. I found that really hard to listen to, but people who have read that have said that it's really, really good.
I love it.
Really good for negotiating, but I was reading it on my way to work, and I work in a behaviour school, which is quite intense. So when I was listening to his negotiating skills about how to get like people that have been kidnapped back and or get money back, I actually found it like quite a headache. It was too intense for me, so I haven't even finished that one, but it is on there. I think that's the
I'm
only.
going to get on Audible and start adding these because
Yeah,
I've read Never Split the Difference, but negotiation specific, I've not read any others.
there's
So go on, go
uh,
wild.
Go for No. That one actually is good, but there's two versions,
Alright.
and there's a newer version. I've read the newer version, but the one that was recommended was the original. So I don't know if that one's might be better. This one was about network marketing in particular, whereas the other one's more general.
Yeah,
I still might go back and get that one later. They were the main ones about negotiating, which again, as I said, I feel like that's something I'm quite weak at, but I need to be better at it, but I almost don't want to be better at it. But I do need to. Like, I'm a manager in the school that I work in, so I sometimes have to come across that like I agree with people even though I don't, and then I have to. But leadership isn't the same as negotiating. Leadership is about this is where we need to get to, and I have to work out how we get there, and you have to bring your people along with you. Whereas negotiating is you meeting somewhere in the middle, right? Or making them think you met in the middle, but actually you met over here. That's what leadership is. That's what I have to do. And that is something that I do struggle with. It's hard. Working with people is hard.
yeah, yeah, it is. Yeah, yeah. But ultimately, that's the whole.
The
That's
whole thing.
that's everything, isn't it? Yeah,
Yeah, my
yeah, for
skill
sure.
set is communication is something that I think I'm really good at, which is why I think I've ended up doing these types of videos because I'm able to know what I'm good at and what I'm not good at, but it's about working on the thing. I don't know, some people argue that you need to be better at the things you're not good at. And other people would argue, why would you bother wasting your time? Just be the best at the things you're already good at and do well at that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think. So I was speaking to a fella who runs his own business, contracts for the place that I just been made redundant from. We spoke at length about what it's like to have run a business as the sole director for the last 30 years, and how that's changed and diversification and things like that. And I've forgotten where we're going with that. What was the question?
I was talking to you about being a leader and being the best at what you do rather
Oh
than
yeah,
to be good at the things you're not good at.
yeah,
Pay somebody else to do those things. That's why.
that's right. Yeah. So he he's obviously fantastic at that. That's he's brilliant at that. And I said, how do you diversify, against your business? Have you, do you have other businesses? Do you invest in property or so on? And he said, yeah, I invest in property. I've got 7 or 8 properties. And he said his house he bought with a big plot of land, and he sold a third of the land with planning permission on. And I said, all right. So we started having to talk about how he did that. And he said, well, to be honest with you, I just got a guy in who knew how to deal with it, knew how to add the most value in planning, and he took a cut out of it at the end. And I said to him, that's brilliant. That's a really good mindset, because you can try and spread yourself too thin, and just do 10 jobs badly, or you can do one job fantastically and use the revenue from that to spread your risk by bringing in the appropriate experts.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I've got a friend that trades in the stock market. And I said to him, in an ideal world, we would just 50-50 on everything, because then my risk is split between property and trading, but he does all of the trading. I do all of the property, and his risk is split between property and trading. And I said the more experts in a field that you can get involved in a circle and bring each other up and spread each other's risk. So 5 JVs are so 2 JVs are better than one of your own. For example, if I were to buy two HMOs 50-50 in a company with a JV partner, that's 8 tenants and 2 properties that you're splitting that risk across. If that's then 2 areas as well, then you're splitting that across 8 tenants, 2 areas and 2 properties. You buy one, that's 1 area, 4 tenants, 1 property. The roof on one fails, that's the one you're stuck with. So yeah, massively, we spoke about spreading risk and getting experts in, just having each other's backs, really.
Right. Sorry, lost my voice.
Yeah.
We're going to finish up in a minute. If there was like one, do you have like a message, like the thing that you wish that you had known 6 months ago, or just something that you just want to push out there to the universe?
Something that I wish I'd known 6 months ago? No, I think a message-wise, I spoke to, yeah, I do. So my partner's dad, I don't think he's been massively happy in his job for the past couple of years, and now he's retiring early and going to do something that he is really passionate about, and it's going to make him really, really happy. But ultimately, it made me a little bit sad watching him wait. And we had a bit of a chat about property and how he could get, how they as a family could get into that, and how they could help, live a more fulfilling life by being supported by that. And that's just not something that he was interested in. He was really, really happy after 30 years to have paid off the mortgage on his house, on their house. And I struggle when I see people that I really want to help. So yeah, I think it's about being really open-minded, but also not trying to force anything on anyone. That's what they want to do. That's where their highest values stand. So if there's somebody that you can't help, let go of it and just find somebody else that you can help. But yeah, if you're if anybody out there is in a position where they feel like they really need to retire for whatever reason, changing circumstances or whatever, but they feel they're further, they're too far away, they can't afford to, or whatever, then just please get in touch with me or with a creative, smart property investor that can help change their journey a bit, and help use property as a vehicle to change their life. I'm lucky enough that I know what I know now, so that I can put these changes in place now. But yeah, reach out to an expert that knows and see what's possible for you. That's the message, I think. It's not very scripted, I'm afraid.
That's all right, but it was real. It was what you wanted to say. You said it.
Yes, it's just an example that hits me at home. My partner turned down an opportunity that was an unpaid internship the other day, and that was heart-wrenching for me, because I thought, if I'd have done this earlier, if I'd have, but you just got to grow and do what you can, and look at those things. But yeah, we're young, so we still have plenty of those opportunities in the future. So
Cool.
But join me in the journey.
Well, yes, exactly. We will all join each other on the journey. We'll do it together. Cool. Thank you so much for speaking to me today, Alex. I really appreciate that. So we only just started chatting last week, so this was quite soon. This is the first conversation we've actually had face to face. So that was
It is, yeah.
very brave of you. Well done.
Thank you.
And yeah, I'll message you later. All right.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah, well done for nailing 4 of these in a week, by the way. That's
Oh,
champion, that
great.
is.
I don't know if I can keep going. I have to get people being willing to be as brave as you have been today. So not everyone's as brave. We'll see how I do.
Sure. Thank
Cool.
you very much, Shona. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, me too. See
Have a
you later.
beautiful evening.
You too. Bye.